the other thing about that dynamic was that the more successful I got on the outside, at the same time I was experiencing the spiritual death that they talk about in the recovery literature. I didn't know what a spiritual death was then, and I would have laughed at you if you'd said anything to me about spiritual death. But basically, I was dying inside. My love for life and love for people and love for anything was dying, and just addiction took over.
But
And I didn't,
there's a strange world, isn't it? That world in which sort of, I guess you perceive, you understand that something bad is happening, but then you have
yes,
all this success. And how does anybody
yes,
reconcile that? And then additionally, the other sort of experience is there's something wrong with your body and with your sexual identity.
yes,
Who am I? And that must have been
yes.
quite a heady mix to try and sort of figure out.
Yes, well, I didn't realize then how much part of my unhappiness was the fact that I was living the wrong gender.
Right.
I was codependently living the doctor's version of me.
Right.
They medically altered me. They put me on estrogen when I was 12 and made me into a woman. So
Yeah.
I was living somebody else's life. So it's no wonder that I had such dark periods of suicidal ideation. And the other thing about being in that house was the more successful I got, but the more my addiction progressed, the less I felt like I deserved these good
Yeah,
things.
exactly.
So
That's
it
yeah,
felt
yeah.
alienated from the world that I
They
was
become the
in.
lash, don't they? That makes you feel
Yes.
absolutely
Yeah, I just felt bad about myself because I'd said to my girlfriend when we moved to the new house that we're buying together, which was such a beautiful house. I wish I still owned it. When we bought that house together, I said I will never use cocaine in this house. You
Mhm.
know how we draw a line in the sand, and it's like this is going to be the difference. I'm going to put the cocaine behind me, and I'm just going to drink and smoke weed. But of course, I'm an addict, so first of all, that's impossible. But also, I was carrying so much pain and trauma in me. I really thought, well, if you'd lived the life I've lived and had the things happen to you that have happened to me, you'd need to drink and take drugs. And that's a very good excuse because it's true, but at the same time,
It's true. I
addiction
mean, exactly,
feeds
it's
off of
true.
all
But
of those
it's sort of
things.
like
Addiction,
it's
yeah,
also it's interesting, I think, and I wonder what you think about this. There is a reason why people might use problematically, but the difference between somebody who's using problematically and an addict often is this, that when you
yes,
remove the problems from the person using
yes,
problematically, the using
yes,
drops off. Whereas the
yes,
addict, it has a life of its own and then needs
absolutely,
something else as well, because it is
absolutely.
a
And
condition. It's not
yes,
it's not, it doesn't flow. It does in many people's lives, it flows from something or it'll be triggered by something, but it should be understood as a condition in and of its own right.
absolutely. And I don't know what kind of clients you work with, but when I was running my clinic at the Hell Clinic in London, which I ran for the last few years before I moved here in 2015, I was working with clients that were very, very successful people. I'll just give you one example because she's passed and her family won't mind me saying this. I helped Amy Winehouse stay clean when she was picking up her Grammys
Sure.
for the Back to Black album. And I worked with a lot of very, very successful people. But what those people discover is that they think that they're going to be happy when they get their BAFTA or when they get their
Not
Golden
at all.
Globe or
No,
whatever,
no, no.
or when they get the house and the status and everything. But then they just find that it's still just them with that life, with all the trophies, and
But
it's the
it's
addiction
interesting, I
still
think,
there.
the issue around like misuse of substances, because at some point the substances become the problem, but they
Yes,
often start out as a form of solution,
yes,
and
oh,
people are
absolutely.
attached to it because they're a form of solution. And then the
Yes, absolutely.
dependencies form, the isolations form, the low self-esteem, the difficulties, the sort of patterns of behavior. Let's go forward a bit. At what
Mhm.
point and how did it happen that you went, this is not working for me, these substances, this alcohol, these powders and pills are not working. What can you tell
Mhm.
us what happened there?
Well, my dad had died. I was using 24/7. Every day was like hell. If I had slept, waking up and thinking, oh, I've got to do all that again was like hell. One day, my partner found me at 7 o'clock in the morning leaving the house. And it's a miracle she heard the door because she was like 3 floors up. She heard me leaving the house, and all that was going through my mind, and this is why I have no problem with accepting I was insane. All that was going through my mind was, I'm going to the Thames and I'm jumping in because I can't do
Right.
another
Oh, you
day.
poor thing.
So
Just
so
a
that's the
horrible
point she
place to
she
be.
kind of grabbed me at, and
Yeah.
I'm very, very grateful that I was able to be honest with her. And then she got a friend of mine who was sober 6 months at that point, who was somebody I used to party with and go to his clubs. He was a club promoter. He came to see me in my rock bottom in our house and carried the message to me. He was transformed by 6 months of recovery. I could see the light in his eyes. At that point, I thought it was impossible for me to stop because I felt so powerless. But he said to me, look, you know that I use like you and I'm not using now. So do what I do. And he'd been to a rehab called Farm Place down in Surrey. And I didn't have the money in my bank to go, but fortunately, I had a bank that had seen how much money I'd earned in recent years. So they extended the credit for me to be able to go to rehab. And I ended up doing 7 weeks of primary rehab at Farm Place, which was owned by the Priory Group. And then I went on and did 6 months in their residential secondary rehab.
If you like this video or any of the videos, please don't forget to like, comment, and to subscribe. It really helps. Thanks very much.